Hi, Alfonso. I'm here with big Alfonso photographer from Sydney today. And today I want to talk with Alfonso about location photography in Sydney. It's one of my favorite city to visit besides photography, but I must say is one of the most photogenic um, places in the world, especially for landscape photography. But before going into it, I would like to ask Alfonso a little bit more about you.
Thank you, Stefano. Buongiorno from Sydney. I usually do these photo tours around the rocks, aka the Aboriginal word Talawalada, as you can see on my shirt here. And we're in lockdown now. How are you doing?
Things are getting better, and I'm sure we're gonna go through.
Yeah, likewise in Sydney, things are getting much better. So yeah, just very quickly, I wanted to show you my business, to tell you what I do, but more importantly, our love for travel photography is really what we both do, and I wanted to share that passion with your viewers today.
So you have about 20 years of experience in location photography, and probably you are one of the most experienced photographers in Sydney, and I guess you know lots of famous places and hidden gems as well, I can say.
Definitely. I'd love to show you some of those right now if you'd like to have a look.
Yeah, one thing that I would like to go through is what are your favorite landscape subjects in Sydney?
I particularly like to photograph Sydney city at night. I think it just makes for a much cleaner, less busier image. So this spot here, for example, is looking down George Street into the historic area of the Rocks, where I normally run my tours, and it's over the Kyle Expressway. So I'm just gonna pull up a map of Google so you can get an idea where I'm talking about. And we're looking at the map of the city. That's the Harbour Bridge there. And then just over here, we've got the Opera House. And so this is the area I'm talking about just here. It's called the Kyle Expressway. And then you can have this view straight down onto George Street of the Rocks area, like you see here in the photo I'm showing you now. Another really nice spot, it's just under the bridge there, and it's called Dawes Point. And by the way, if you can put the links in your video later, but you can have a look at the blog post and shows you more detail in writing here. But Dawes Point is located just underneath the bridge here on the south side, right under here where I'm showing you with a little arrow, just in there. And it's kind of looking back towards the Opera House on the west side of Dawes Point. Well, you're on the south side, but you're looking east. That's where you get the view of the Opera House, like you do right there. Black and white's really a great idea. Sometimes at night, you can really get some nice contrast and separation in the light and shade. It always works well with a cityscape shot like I've done here to convert this into a black and white. My favorite software to edit with is with Adobe Lightroom, and then maybe for more advanced editing, I hop into Photoshop, and then I also use Nix software. This spot here, it's called Campbell's Cove. It gives you almost like a 360-degree view. This is the International Boat Terminal, where the famous Ruby Princess was more recently. We won't get into that, but this spot here gives you a great view of Circular Quay. So that's Kyle Expressway there. I'll just zoom in a bit so you can get a closer view. That's the Kyle Expressway, and then this is Circular Quay, and this is called Campbell's Cove. And I'll show you in a minute on the map where that is exactly. But this is looking the other way, towards Milson's Point on the other side of the bridge. And then this is the Park Hyatt Hotel down here. But you get great views, you know, and just to my right, you got the Opera House as well. So before we go to Milson's Point, I'll just show you where I was a second ago, which is, this is the area down here where the international boat terminal is. If I magnify that a bit, you can see here, that's where the Park Hyatt is. So somewhere around here, you'll have a viewing deck just up here, and then you can get those beautiful 360 views of the Opera House, Milson's Point, or Harbour Bridge, and Circular Quay. So now we've gone across the bridge to Milson's Point. We were over here in the last shot looking back this way, and this shot was taken around sunset from Milson's Point. You got Luna Park very close to that. Another really nice spot I like is Barangaroo. So Barangaroo, for those who haven't been to Sydney for a while now, has been redeveloped in the last 5 years, and they put all these lovely sandstone blocks, because it used to look like that a long time ago. There used to be a port here, so they try to bring it back to what it was hundreds of years ago. And this was shot around sunset as well, looking east actually. So you can even come here for a sunrise, and maybe like even earlier in the year, the sun will be rising somewhere around here. So it could be also another potentially a good sunrise spot, and that's called Barangaroo. So Barangaroo is just around this section here, also known as Miller's Point. So this whole grass area here, and then you're looking back towards the bridge that way. Of course, all of these shots would require a tripod, a nice DSLR, shooting in full manual mode. Typically shoot this at f11, ISO 100 to get less grain, f11 to get good depth of field in the shot, a wide angle lens, and then you vary the shutter speed depending on how dark or light it is. So it could be anywhere from like 1 second to 30 seconds as it gets dark. This is a very famous spot. Everyone usually shoots from Macquarie's Chair or Macquarie's Point. So, but people who are new to Sydney, this is a great spot for sunset. So this is the Opera House here, the rocks, as you saw earlier, and then here you can see Macquarie's Chair. So that gives you kind of a direct view with the Opera House, and then the Harbour Bridge as well in one shot, like I showed you there. So that's just a pano 2-stitch 50mm shots. And another great spot I love going to at night is Observatory Hill. So that is located just up around this section here. And it gives you this great view looking towards the bridge, just over here, called Observatory Hill. Yeah, and this is also near the Park Hyatt Hotel that we had earlier. There's one of these fence holes that lost its metal insert. I don't know how it came off, but yeah, I love it because there's only one with a hole in it, and you get this great view looking towards the Opera House.
Yeah, this is a typical example, if I can interrupt you, Alfonso,
sure.
Of a very well-known subject, the Opera House, but you were able, I think, in my opinion, in this photo to subframe it and give it clearly another dimension. So it's not only about making a photo of a fantastic place, but also to make a composition that is so very different from most of the photos that are around.
Yeah. So it for when I saw this, it reminded me of the, O for Opera. It even looks like a porthole view from like a cruise ship, perhaps. And then the hard thing about this shot is I have to do 2 shots. So I had to focus for the ring, and then I had to focus stack in Photoshop, and I also focused for the Opera House, and I blended the 2 shots together. But if you're interested, there is some info about how to do that in my blog post. I can put a link in your video as well to help people. So yeah, moving along, there's some other nice little areas that you could get good angles and views. This one, this is from the bridge stairs. So when you're going onto the Harbour Bridge and you want to walk across, at the top you can get a view back towards the Opera House, and you get the good ambience here with the pub, the rooftop. You can see it's very busy, and then and all the other buildings here that are beautifully lit. So moving along, this spot is not as well known as the other ones I mentioned. This one I think is a little bit of difficult to find because Beulah Street Wharf does not have ferries that take you there. It's not a typical public ferry stop. However, there is a wharf there, and you can see there's some fishermen down here. I love this sort of voyeuristic view because you're shooting in between the buildings here. And just so you know on the map where it is, it's on the other side, and here's Beulah Street Wharf there. I got it pinned. And you can access that when you go over the bridge. You just walk along this side here, along the perimeter, up towards this place called Mary Booth Lookout Reserve, which is also a great spot to shoot at sunset. And then you can head into Beulah Street from there. There's tiny little roads there. So, and you shoot in between, and don't be surprised at night if you're taking a photo and a possum walks right next to your tripod, because there's some locals that love to leave some fruit there for them, and there's a family of possums that regularly come. Very harmless and cute.
One thing I wanted to ask you, because you're showing lots of night photos. How safe is that Sydney to walk around and make photos at night?
Very safe, no problem at all. I've been doing this for 12 years, and I've never had a single incident. You might get the occasional happy-go-lucky box party in the Rocks area, but I've never had any bad problems at all at night. Never heard of anyone having any problem. I mean, these places are also very populated. There's a lot of people always walking around, and so it's in my opinion, it's perfectly safe. Of course, still, tread with caution wherever you go, and just be careful if you're alone in one of those quieter areas like Beulah Street, even though it's a very safe area.
Do you have any other site that you would suggest to go, more of a hidden gems for photography once you are in the CBD, in the central city, in the central area of the city?
Okay. So if you're looking at, let's say, architecture, I would say that, the Rocks itself has lots of beautiful old buildings if you're into old architecture. But a lot of architectural photography really depends on the angle of the light on the building. So so it's important that you use a Google Map or Google Earth, and then you can see the angle of the light that's hitting the building and the building that you wish to photograph. So some areas that like clusters or areas that might be of interest to people, I would say, like, if you go into modern architecture, there's a lot of really new buildings around Barangaroo, in this section here in particular. And if you do a little walk around here when it's getting close to sunset in the late afternoon, this area here called Barangaroo has a lot of beautiful glass on the building, so you can get a lot of abstract architecture, like a lot of close-up shots of buildings. If I have time, I'll show you later that in my photos. But yeah, that area there would be good. And then lastly, if you wanted to look at older, larger bits of architecture, anywhere along Macquarie Street, this is all, you got the Mint You've got the old hospital here, yeah, eye hospital. You've got Parliament House. You've got the State Library. So there's just a line of beautiful buildings along there, and then you can end up towards the cathedral, the art gallery as well. So all this section here, you can do a loop walk. It'll probably take you an hour, and you grab a lot of beautiful architecture during the day. I would probably aim for the afternoon because the light's coming this way from the west. So you'll be hitting these buildings nicely to shoot that. Of course, Hyde Park's also beautiful. There's some lovely fountain here. You can juxtaposition with the cathedral, and then you'll have the beautiful Sydney Tower just in here. And of course, I can't forget to mention QVB, or Queen Victoria Building as well, and then next to that, Town Hall. So yeah, I mean, that whole loop walk, probably an hour and a half in total.
When we started our talk, I saw also a few photos of on your wall about pools and the coast. Let's move into the beach.
Sure, yeah. So you basically have the northern beaches, and they run anywhere from inside the harbor all the way to Manly, and then all the way up to Palm Beach. So if we look at the map here, I guess you could divide two sections for your beach shots. So anything over the other side of the bridge, all along here too, there's all these little areas that you could shoot, but they're not so much beaches as they are coves. All along here, you're getting the Pacific Ocean, so Manly, Dee Why, Narrabeen, Warriewood, Mona Vale, Avalon, Whale Beach, all the way to Palm Beach. So I'm going to show you a whole bunch of, you can see some pins here in certain areas of some areas that I like to photograph for sunrise in particular, because this is facing east. And then I'll also show you some along the east, during the suburbs here, beautiful rock pools and beaches along here that might be of interest to your audience as well. So let's dive into the east, the northern beaches first. So here we go. Turameta is one of my favorite beaches. You can see here in the photograph, it's a drone shot. I shot this with a DJI Mavic Pro, the older version, not the new one. This was at sunrise. So there's a little walk that goes through from the bottom here. There are no lifesavers here. It's a very little known, it's not very well known to most Sydney-siders, but it's a spectacular beach. You can see it's quite a big beach as well, and there's hardly anyone here. Every time I go, it's very quiet. See, there's two people on the beach there. And next to that is Narrabeen. So Narrabeen is a more well-known beach. So just go back into the calendar so you can get an idea where we're looking here along the coast. So we got Manly, Curl, Dee Why. We're still going up the coast. Narrabeen. This is the famous Narrabeen beach. And then next to that is Turameta. This beach here, or Peel Place, is where you get off with your car and then walk down, and that's Narrabeen. So now we're looking at the northern end of Narrabeen, and that's another drone shot of the rock pool there. So, as you know, even in around most of Australia's beaches, it's kind of a morning ritual for a lot of locals to go for a morning swim in these pools, which are much safer than going out in the ocean. Depending on the tide, it's usually safe to go in these pools for a quick swim. So that was just two locations I wanted to show you quickly for the northern beaches. Now we're going to go to the eastern suburbs. So that means that we're going to go over the bridge, and we're going to head to this section here towards the airport in the eastern suburbs. So everywhere from the heads, that's the entrance to the harbor, down to Maroubra. We're going to look at some beaches there. But let's have a look at this first one. Bronte Pool. I love this pool. It's a small pool. Again, You can see here a few locals going for a swim. And this was shot at sunrise. We didn't have the most spectacular sunrise that morning, but I still love the mood in the cloud and the tide in the water. And then there's a famous walk you probably all know, the Bondi to Bronte walk. But if you go past Bronte, you can go even further on that walk to a place called Coogee, aka it's like they make jokes about it being like a New Zealand colony, because there's a lot of New Zealanders that live in that area, and also a lot of English backpackers too. So Coogee Pool is another famous place that's worth a visit, and you got these. It's just a very different, I guess, architecture in the pool compared to the other pools, because you got these blocks here, like diving blocks. So that was shot at sunrise again. So this is the kit that I used for these shots. I have a Canon kit as well. I like to use Fujifilm X-T3. Typically I use prime lenses like a 35mm equivalent to 50mm, or a 14mm equivalent to 21mm. And this is my tripod, a Cirrus tripod, and I usually work on a MacBook Pro 13-inch. And I even put the total weight there, because we're travel photographers. Every kilo counts when you're going hand carry these days. So
Absolutely.
it's good to know what gear you have. I also have a Canon kit, which is about 7 kilo all up. So 2 kilos or less helps a lot, because our limit's 7 kilo. And God knows what's going to happen in after Corona or COVID-19, with the weight restrictions and stuff.
So to close up, I guess, this video, I would like you to just to give a couple of suggestions on your favorite place for sunset photography. One is about your favorite spot for sunrise photography.
Sydney is really more of I guess a sunrise location, because we're facing east. Having said that, there are some locations that are beautiful for sunrise. So what I might do is my Instagram feed here has tons of photos, and I'm just gonna show you some of my favorite spots. I love Barangaroo for a sunset. So this is another angle. I showed you looking east for a sunset, but this is a sunrise, sorry, but this is a sunset shot. So this is facing west with the same use of the blocks here. And
so
believe it or not, this is Miller's Point, also known as Barangaroo. So just to recap for people who don't remember where I was talking about, it's near the Rocks area, and then you walk to Miller's Point area, and then you come into this area called Barangaroo Reserve. So I was kind of set up this way looking west, and all along this perimeter here you got those sandstone blocks to play with. This is a shot from Macquarie's Chair. So there's some rock down here too. You can really play with the lovely texture and the water movement there too. And it's not too rough unless a big speedboat comes or ferry comes and splashes you a wave. But that's not a bad spot to even do some longer lens shots. Like this is with the 200mm Canon lens of the Opera House, and you're looking west for this shot. So that's a great spot for sunsets. So now going to finish off with sunrise locations. This location, it's near Tarameta, that beach I showed you on the northern beaches. And it's a lovely spot to get a variety. So that's the same location. And you can see it's quite dangerous. So just be careful. I always wear spiked boots as well, and always check the tides, and never turn your back on the ocean. Yeah, so that kind of concludes. And on my Instagram feed here, Alfonso the photographer, there are tons more shots from many other locations I haven't touched on yet that you can look at, and most of them are pinned with the Google Map.
So thank you so much, Alfonso, for your deep knowledge and in showing us also all of these fantastic locations. I'm really looking forward to come back to Sydney. Now it's about 1 year. I plan to come down for Eastern, but obviously there was no possibility to do that. I just would like to understand with you a little bit more about what you do, because I saw other photos mix of Sydney and also other parts of the world like Japan and so on. I know you run travel photography trips. Can you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about that. I've done some live streaming workshops now that I've been running. So these are 1 hour long anyway, but this is for people who are still hesitating to go out and about. There are many courses here that only run for an hour. They're not costly at all. Also gives you a good chance to see my teaching style and to interact with me face to face via Zoom. Now, once we're let out of our homes and we can interact, like, I mean, right now in Perth, it's getting much better there where they allow up to 10 people. But my photo walks run every Saturday in all of these cities here: Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth City, Perth Fremantle. But if you're around the Sydney area, I'm also going to start doing these. Well, I've actually got dates here for micro adventures. So we got Blue Mountains, we've got Port Stephens, Kiama, and I'll be adding some more locations around Melbourne, South Australia, outside of Adelaide too, in the near future. Keep an eye on that. And then very quickly, we've got the longer trips like Tasmania. So Tasmania typically goes 3-4 times a year. There's lots of itineraries here. So anyway, basically, I'm anticipating that we're not going to be in lockdown, hopefully in the next month or two, and then people will hesitate to go overseas, or we might not even be allowed to go overseas. So I'm going to focus on more local travel once they open up the borders for all the states. Hopefully by around October, December this year, we'll be able to get to Tasmania, which I go to a lot and love very much, focusing on landscape. And last but not least, maybe by the end of the year, towards November, early next year, we can start to travel overseas. So I was born and raised in the Philippines. So I go to the Philippines. I'm Spanish blood. So I go to Spain. I used to live in Japan. My wife's Japanese. I speak Japanese. So I go to Japan as well. So you can see here the other locations: Japan, Spain, and then last but not least, Faroe Islands. This is belonging to Denmark above Scotland. So yeah, I have the best job in the world, and thanks so much for letting me talk about that. I hope you got some value out of this moment, talking about our favorite spots in Sydney.